Good afternoon. I'm glad to welcome you at our OCP Europe online meetup. Today we are having a webinar with the Edgecore to learn about how they transform the way the world connects. As you might know, the OCP European Regional Community is running a series of online meetups. Our mission is to explore the future of data centers within the OCP philosophy. Today we will speak about the upcoming transformation to a wireless world with outstanding capacities. We are about to see the rise and the expansion of 5G, the next generation of connectivity, that is going to change the technological markets and the way we consume data. New standards and higher capacities for data exchange will unlock new possibilities in the way we consume and use data. This would be possible if we have a reliable and efficient hardware. In this webinar, you will hear from OCP and Edgecore that will speak about the open networking markets and solutions, and will also show some recent trends. We also have a Q&A section, so please type your questions in the chat section and we will address them in the end of this webinar. I'm your host, Lesia Dimit, a strategic innovation engineer at TUSRSI and the project lead of the OCP European Community. TUSRSI is a manufacturer and a provider of customized IT systems for data centers. We develop high-performance, energy-efficient, and also green solutions for our clients. TUSRSI is a platinum member of the OCP community. Open Compute Project Foundation is a rapidly growing community that is aimed to redesign and deliver the most efficient and scalable computing solutions. Edgecore Network is the leader in open networking hardware for data centers, telecommunication service providers, and enterprises. Edgecore is also a platinum member of the Open Compute Project. The company has 15 contributions in the OCP database and 29 solutions which are available at the OCP marketplace. Today, our first guest is Steve Helvey, who is the VP of Channel Development at the OCP Foundation. He's covering the cross-regional markets and also work with clients. Our second guest is Lukas Lukowski, who is the VP of Sales and Channel EMEA at Edgecore Networks. He is responsible for the market's expansion programs and also the relationship with the distributors and resellers across the entire region. He has an established track record in his network infrastructure, data center security, and the other associated technological markets. I would like to welcome Steve and tell us more about the OCP and networking projects.
Great. Thanks, Lesia. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time out of your day to join the webinar. We hope you find it of value. I want to spend just a couple minutes sharing some insight into what makes something open within OCP, and then primarily focusing on the open networking project itself. So the OCP solution, or so OCP project, was founded in 2011 by Facebook with the idea that things work better in an open environment. So at that time, they were outpacing their hardware requirements, and so they were working directly with the manufacturer to design their own hardware across compute, storage, and networking. Once they made those designs, they decided to take it a step further and actually open it up to an open source community. So with the help of a few other companies, they've turned it into a technical nonprofit foundation where now we have over 200 companies and 6,000 engineers working across 12 to 20 different types of projects. Those projects are run by volunteers and they handle inbound contributions. They could be a specification, they could be an actual product, and really the idea of solving communal problems that individual companies or organizations have trouble solving themselves. And there's really four key things that embody OCP and everything that comes through. One is efficiency. Does it meet certain efficiency standards across a particular project? Number two, does it scale? Three, does it have an actual impact over, say, previous contributions, and is it ready to go to market? And the last is openness. Does it embody an open framework? Does it handle open source software, etc.? So those are really the 4 key tenets of OCP. As an overview of the project, I think today we're going to spend the majority of our time on open networking, and it's really interesting. Out of all the projects, open networking is certainly one of the core 4 projects that started OCP, but it's certainly the biggest and the broadest depth of contributions as well as products. So, and we're lucky to have Edgecore here, who's been the leader in this particular project, share a few ideas today. A couple of things about the market. In general, the market is growing pretty substantially. There's an analyst firm called IHS Markit that tracks OCP revenue, both from current suppliers and current customers, getting current revenue as well as forecasted revenue. They're anticipating significant growth, finishing this year around 4 billion, moving on up to say 5 to 10% of the worldwide market in 2022. So this is pretty significant, and we'll share the next slide will get into a little bit of the vertical areas where we're seeing the majority of the growth. Of course, Europe growing really substantially, and there are really 2 or 3 key areas I want to point out. One is across the telco. It's highlighted here in the lime green. As you'll see that as a percentage of the market, that continues to grow. And the majority of that networking growth will be in networking. And Lucas will hit on a few of those key points. But networking is just not focused on the telco area. We're seeing a lot of growth in networking in the cloud service provider area, which is the tier 2 cloud service providers. Could be a SaaS company, could be a web scale company, or it could be just an online type of web services company. So that's the other area of growth that we're seeing in networking that Lucas can share a few ideas about. Great, and just lastly, I wanted to touch on one of the key drivers of open networking in itself, and Lucas will get into more detail about this, but it's really around 5G. And when I speak with companies, whether it be a supplier or an end customer, they're very curious about how 5G is going to affect their data center infrastructure. As you can see, the increase in spend across SDN and NFV. And this article just came out today, and I thought it had some pretty interesting numbers, specifically around the 2019 to 2021 growth. The growth flattens out as the market matures, but over the next 2 years is where the bulk of this investment is going to be made. Just another quick representation of how important 5G is in open infrastructure. As companies deploy 5G, they're looking at a white box or an open hardware model. So they're moving away from a traditional legacy OEM type of infrastructure to a more flexible model where you have more options, both at the procurement as well as your network operating system, all the way up the stack, which again, Lucas will get into more detail about. And my last example here is AT&T, and this is just a real good example of somebody that's pretty prominent within open compute and how they're approaching the white box model. They're going to be getting rid of a lot of their proprietary hardware and replacing it with the white box products, but more importantly, they're contributing these specs and they're encouraging other manufacturers to make the same thing and then open source their contributions. So when we speak with customers, one thing that they really need, if you're a large enterprise, is you need a multi-vendor strategy. You cannot just be solely relying on one vendor. So the idea behind open compute is I can make one specification if I'm AT&T, then I can go have Edgecore and other manufacturers make me the same thing. And Edgecore can not only deliver that product, but then they can build value-added services on top of that. And that's really where you get into the differentiation of OCP, is you have a commoditization at the hardware layer, and then you focus really on the value-added services that customers care the most about around service, support, and helping these people through the open transition. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the star of today's show, Lucas. I'm going to turn it over to you, and hopefully you can share a little bit more about what Innova is doing with Edgecore, as well as over open networking in general.
Yeah, thank you, Steve, and also much appreciated, Lesia, for making everything happen. I believe that there was also a slide or two related with some case studies, and we've been discussing about those some days ago. So you can see an example with Innova. They are a gaming company, and we've been engaged there together with our partner Edgecore Networks, who is providing some kind of like a automation. Let's say they are aggregating the disaggregation, and this is like just one single example how significant savings open networking could bring to you. Not only speaking about the hardware, but this is also like network capex or networks operation expenses. This is just unbelievable, and we have such examples much more, and also on totally different scale if someone is interested. So moving forward, today I would like to speak about our company and in general how the OCP Open Compute Project was changing our company, how we've been starting more or less, where we are today and where we are going. So the topic, the title of that, a couple of slides as we address it, it is transforming the way the world connect. Briefly about the presentation flow, who we are, a bit more about the Edgecore Networks, again, briefly about the open disaggregated networking, what is the value proposition and evaluation of the open networking, and why more of open networking. I will show also some slides where we are going from the data center environment to the telcos and so on and so on. Also, if someone is wondering how to start, I believe that this is a good webinar to get a little bit more ideas. We can help without a doubt, and we will end up on some questions and answers. So maybe before I will say a bit more word about the Edgecore Networks, it is always good to mention about the Accton technology. So Accton technology is one of the largest, if not the largest, Taiwanese ODM, original design manufacturer, primarily focusing on the networking. Accton is our mother company, if I say that. Edgecore is like one of the go-to-the-market subsidiary, and we are wholly owned by the Accton. Speaking about maybe some numbers, so Accton was founded in 1988 and went on the IPO in 1995. Around 4,500 employees worldwide, 700 engineers, headquartered, and the main R&D centers are located in Taiwan. And Edgecore, where I am working, it was launched in 2004. On the beginning, we were focusing more on the traditional business, where we are providing still up to now, let's say, our traditional product line, switches and the wireless with our own software. But in the end of the day, the open networking was the driver, which really changed our company. And this is the story which I would like to present you today. So what is open networking benefits? I'm sure that you hear that always, combination of those three open slogans: open hardware, open software, open networking. That is bringing us to the disaggregation. But for us, for Edgecore, open networking is a freedom, control, and innovation. What I have in mind, having freedom. So disaggregation is really, bringing a lot of choices, a lot of flexibility. You don't have any longer so-called vendor lock-in. You have open hardware, you can use open software. Greater control. This is the first time when the customers, when our partners could have a control on the network infrastructure through open software platforms and also some commercial ones. They can, share their ideas. We are able to react on their needs much more faster. This is something that you cannot meet in the, let's say, traditional world. Innovation, that is something which is going rapidly over the community and develops approach. And in the end, reduction on the CAPEX and OPEX. Main idea of that slide is that when someone is touching open networking, the first things which the people are thinking is that it is something which is saving you cost. It's true, but really it's much more. And please stay with us. This is what we would like to show you. So how the current way of building networks looks like. So we have like a 20+ years of so-called big iron system architectures. Cumbrous and unflexible. It's determined by a few key vendors. You have vendors looking, you are, let's say, locked with the vendor, with the solutions which they are provided. You are pretty limited with the ability to influence the vendor roadmap. So really, also when we are going to the telco business model, which based on the operation service costs, that all is bringing a very similar little room for innovation. And this is what we are trying to change. And even that this is a hard change, or especially that was a hard change on the beginning, it's looking totally different nowadays. So those three big logo types are very important for us. Everything started from the OCP and Open Compute Project. This is where our company Edgecore Networks is really, putting a lot of focus. My colleagues, Jeff Kettling, he's a VP of the technology. He's working very closely on latest contribution with the community. Our CEO, Mr. George Chaparian, is also taking a chair of the OCP in Taiwan. But OCP is also driving those others open networking communities like the ONF, Open Network Foundation, and you can also see that Edgecore is a member from the 2014, where also our president is really active in the ONF, and the Telecom Infra project, which is like some kind like a sister project of the OCP with more telco focus. It was started in 2016 in May, as I remember, and we are very active there. We are also contributing some special design, especially what Steve was mentioning about the 5G mobile backhaul. This is also where open networking is going today. A few words about early adopters. So everything was being started from the hyperscales, like Google, Facebook, Amazon. I'm sure that you know exactly those 4 or 5 big guys. So they being the first, the hyperscales cloud, the data centers providers, they, let's say, push the market to get an open hardware. They've been also, let's say, strong enough to have their own software in a lot of cases, and more or less this is how it was started. But after that, the others came in, like the cloud service providers, hosting and data centers facility providers. And if you will take a look on that pyramid, from the early adopters to the mass adopters, in the end of the day, we will land it, and we are already also there, even on the traditional enterprise, on the campus network. So open networking today is not only about leaf and spine switches, close architectures dedicated for the data center. Maybe that was the case 5, 6 years ago, but it was changing. Speaking about the changes, about the evolution, I believe that this is a good slide, which is also going how Edgecore was starting that journey. So we've been the first with the 10G open contribution. That was 5712 switch on the Trident 2 and Intel Atom CPU. That was more or less when I was joining Edgecore company 5 years ago. And over that time, under the OCP, with a lot of cooperation between end customers, between hyperscales inside the community, we've been just disaggregating more and more different, let's say, level of those networks. So the disaggregation of the 10G switches, 40G switches. And today, if you will take a look on the data center market, simply you will find a really full portfolio of the switches, starting from 10G, 10G with 40G uplinks, 10G with 100G uplinks, 25G with 100G, fully 40G, fully 100G, 256 times 100G, even 512 times 100G, going to 400G. And we are also working on some next generation of models as we are speaking. But after the data centers, and also when the software was becoming to more and more mature with more and more different features, we've been trying to attract also different markets. So after that, we've been focusing and designing a hardware which could answer on some unique, a little bit unique needs coming from the enterprise market. So speaking about even PoE switches, we as an Edgecore, we've been the first who contribute that design to OCP, and today we have a series of the switches with the PoE, with even ultra PoE, really powerful PoE budget. We have also an open Wi-Fi. So we can go today with the right software partners, with the right system integrators, to the retailers, to the stores, and really that's become to be very, very excited. Beside that, I leave it that as a last one, service providers, telecom market. So it doesn't mean that enterprise or the telecom cannot use like a 10G switch, but there are some unique needs, unique requirements coming from that market. So there are a lot of projects under the OCP, but also under Telecom Infra project and with the ONF support, where we are participating. I'm talking about the core central office redesigners as a data centers. We are today with the internet exchanges, and there is a great reference coming from Europe. This is Links, a London Internet Exchange. Those gentlemen being the first AX worldwide who start using disaggregated network. So the London 2 is today in the fully production for more than 1 year. And there is a combination of Edgecore switches, 10G and primarily 100G with a software called OCNOS from IP Fusion. Side gateways and the mobile backhaul and also mobile front haul. So what I wanted to say, open networking was born in the data centers, like the disaggregation of the leaf and spine switches, but open networking is much more just the data center market. So moving forward, we've been trying to migrate, leverage and migrate from the data center CFP enterprises to the telcos and MSO. So what was the challenge? What was the lessons which we have to learn? I was mentioning that in some cases, we could use the same 10G switch, maybe with a little bit different software on top, also in the telco environment. But the telco environment in specific is bringing a lot of different requirements. Let's say They need a deep buffer switches, silicons. So we have to working with different families silicons with Broadcom and also with the others silicon vendors. In some cases, you need like a large TCAM. We've been the first who've been also opening and disaggregated the access based on the passive optical network. So I have on my like the open OLTs with the next generation 10G, XGS-PON, or also GPON 2.5. SASA gateways under the OCP and the TIP from our backhaul switches, aggregation core and routers. If you will take a look on those two, let's say, big markets like the data centers, but also the telecoms, the requirements and the challenge and the adoptions is totally different. Let's have, let's use as an example one of the hyperscalers. What do they need? So they need an open hardware. Most of the time, they are, let's say, experienced enough to even design their own software. So they are good here. Requirements from the feature list are pretty basic comparing to the challenge and all features related in the telecom space. Even the implementation, the maintenance, the logistic is much more simple comparing to the telco world. So we have a couple of huge data centers where the logistic, the spares, you can manage pretty efficient. Where going to the telco environment, I base in Poland. Just in Poland, we have a couple of hundred sites of our national operator. Managing the spares, the inventory is bringing totally different challenge. The hardware on the beginning was not exactly as they could expect in all of the network aspects. Also, in some cases, we have to deal with the totally different environment challenges. We have to design our hardware to be able to working with some harsh environment, and the temperature range is starting from -40 to +60, 65 in some cases. That is really totally different space. But we are today, Edgecore is there, and we have a really great momentum, especially this is what I see from my place, from the Europe. We are engaging with a lot of tier 1 telecom operators, and yes, that is really exciting. We've been working with the hyperscale data centers from basically day one, and I would like to bring some examples of that cooperation. So we've been working pretty close with Facebook. We've been helping with the design of the first wedges. So that was 4 years ago, as far as I remember. The wedge 16H was the first one from that family, based on the Trident 2 silicon. It was even blue, as you can see on that time. So the Facebook make that design. Edgecore Accton, we've been helping them, and we are manufacturing those units to them, always sharing the good know-how. That is really a great cooperation. Next one was a wedge 100S. So that box is fully 100G. It's based on the Broadcom Tomahawk Plus, and as I remember, we have a really powerful control plane here. It is Xeon CPU. That was this year. So there was also in the meantime a couple of different designs, like starting from the wedges. Then Facebook was contributing designs like the more disaggregated chassis, 6-pack, backpack, and the latest one, it's called Mini Pack. This is also a design where we had a pleasure to helping with. So that is really powerful beast. If you can take a look, it's powered by the latest, almost the latest, because you know, silicon industry is also not sleeping, so there is a lot of new chipsets coming soon. But here we have Tomahawk 3 with Intel Xeon as a CPU. We have 8 line cards, and we have 2 types of the line cards. We can have a line cards with the 16 times 100G on the QSFP28, or we have a line cards with 4 times 400G on the QSFP DD dual density. So if you have in mind that we can have here up to 8 such as line cards, from that small box, relative small box, and just single CPU, single chipset, we can have up to 128 times 100G, or up to 32 times 400G, or even a mix of, you know, combination of those cards. So that was like a big step because it is bringing a huge reduction. And I don't only have a reduction on mine related with the number of the switches. This is one. But if today you are able to connect more devices from a single unit, then always it is bringing a reduction on the power consumption. Power consumption is always related with your air condition. And then if you are, for example, going with some commercial softwares and you are able to run, I don't know, 4 such as boxes instead of 16, then it means that you have a reduction on your control planes, on your licenses for the software, if you are going with some commercial software. This is really a lot of different great savings and let's say advantages. So going to the point, I will mention it that the hyperscales are not the only one with who we are working very closely. I saw one slide from Steve's part when Steve was showing that AT&T is very active, very keen to share their knowledge, their experience, and contribute back. So we've been working also with AT&T and others tier 1 telecoms. And as a good result of that cooperation are a couple of different designs which we did partly with them. So AT&T, as an example, been contributing the specification of the next generation passive optical access. And Edgecore was one of the company, first one, and as I believe still the only one, who been able to answer on that requirements and provide ready final physical devices. So this is how we've been designing the first OLTs, 10G, but also going back with 2.5G. So everything what you can see here, if we are talking about the OLTs, all the cell-side gateways, cell-side routers, we are really working closely with the customers, with the telecom operators. This is exactly the answer on their needs. So even the way why we have so many that kind of uplinks, or why that type of the power supply, why front access, why that type of the air conditions. Really, this is like a great lessons from the community. This is the reason that we can meet and we have such as meetings, constantly worldwide. We can share the experience, share the requirements, and try to answer on that. So when we are providing the contributions to the OCP, then also we are allowing the other hardware vendors to design similar hardware and help, to make those changes happen. Speaking about the contribution, Yes, we have a lot of different contribution, starting from 1G, which we are using more like the management switch. It's based on the Helix 4 chipset. A couple of different 10G Tor switches, 40G switches, 100G switches on the Tomahawk, on the latest Trident 3, 64 times 100G as a spine, fully 400G. That is also unbelievable how the speed was changing. When I joined Edgecore 5 years ago, I remember that first contribution of our 10G switch, 48 times 10G SFP plus with 6 times 40G QSFP plus. That was 5 years ago. And 4 years after, on the next OCP conference, we've been contributing a design based on the Tomahawk 3 with 32 times 400G from the single, under the single silicon. That is just unbelievable. 4 years, 40 times faster. This is really a very dynamic market. Besides products with more data center focus, we've been also contributing designs which are more addressed to the access, maybe to the enterprise, to the campus market. So we did that also with our 1G series, PoE and non-PoE models, and also we contribute wireless APs. Maybe that don't sound well like a bare metal access point, but in the end of the day, this is as it is. So we are providing a hardware, open access point hardware, and the others could provide their own software, both open source or commercial one. There are also some designs which are coming from our partners, so-called OCP inspired. So I mentioned that we've been working with Facebook, but besides Facebook, we are also partnering and working really closely with Barefoot Networks. I believe that some of you could hear about that company. Those guys are really doing a great things with the silicons, with the programmability of the data plane, with the P4. And a few weeks ago, they've been acquired by Intel. So I'm sure that will also give them more power to accelerate the changes and the way where they are going also from the silicon side. And there are also some designs under the contributions under the OCP review. So our chassis designs with 256 and 512 times 100G, some 25G Tors, and that mentioned it and show it on the previous slides, mini pack, which based on the Tomahawk 3. At OCP, you will also find a working group with a telco focus. So this is where we are providing more telco-oriented hardware, like the OLTs, like the Cellstar gateways, like even first really beast aggregation routers with 80 times or 40 times 100G with the external TCAM with the high buffer based on the Jericho 2. And under TIP, Telecom project, there is a really interesting design called Cassini. It is the open optical packet transporter. So if someone would like to deal with much more longer distance, like a couple of hundreds kilometers over 100G, 200G, this is a great application for the Cassini. And some designs in progress, like disaggregated side gateways. We do have today like a one ready design, but there are also some others on which we are working. So that was briefly about the hardware, but as we are saying, you know, that hardware will be maybe just a piece of hardware if we will not put a right software on top. So this is why always in the open networking, we are working all together with our ecosystem partners. So when you have that hardware, you can choose a right hardware based on your speed feeds and so on. You have to then choose the right software. So you have two choices. You can go to the open source software options, and I can tell you that that is really growing fast. There are some platforms like Sonic from Microsoft, like the ONF, Dinos, which was designed by AT&T and contributing to the open community. Really, some of them are becoming to be more and more mature, and I'm sure that pretty soon you will be able to use them as in the full production. But if you would like to have a bit something more from the support side and have more solid, maybe today, feature list, you can always go to our commercial partners, and there is a lot of choices. I just show a couple of examples, and it is also interesting to mention about that you can see names like a Big Switch, Cumulus, Broadcom, ICOS, IP Infusion, ITBrook, DriveNet, and so on. Most of them being also born same as the hardware in the data centers, but over the years they've been also trying to find the niche market or maybe they focus. So this is why some of them are, let's say, better or working with a bigger focus in the data center or CFP on the enterprise. Interesting is also to add that the traditional guys, the OEMs like Cisco, Arista, Juniper, I'm sure that it is a public information. You can Google that slowly they are also thinking to disaggregate themselves to provide the software as the greatest value on open hardware. And with a help to, let's say, integrate, aggregate the disaggregated, are coming companies like an Apstra or xCloud. So really, that is a growing ecosystem. As I just mentioned maybe a couple of names, but I believe that today we are working with 25 different software partners or different software projects. And maybe a little bit, slide with a sense of humor. So we are always saying two words, like software is a key, but there is no one key which is opening all the doors. And this is the beauty of open networking, that you can simply choose a right software, same like the right hardware, but we are also saying that the software comes and goes, but the hardware is forever. So if you would like to adopt the business, the disaggregation, open networking, how you should start? First of all, you are starting from the right hardware, from that disaggregation. So you are choosing the right switches, the right hardware that is, bringing you flexibility on the supply chain. You have much more richest options like from the traditional world. That will be not a secret, what I will say, but you can choose Edgecore hardware, which will be delighted, but we are also not the only one in that open networking space from the hardware perspective. So you can also choose a vendor B. You can install in your entire network a software A. And if you will change your mind because, I don't know, over a year or two, you will find out that there is another software which is able to manage your needs better, you can change the software and keep the hardware. So really, it's potentially very powerful flexibility. So then you are going to the open environment. You can reduce the dependency on the vertical integration systems. What I have here on mind, when you are dealing with the open networking hardware, with the open software, whatever it is open source or the commercial one, most of the time you have also an access to the shell, and when you are getting that access, you can use the software for your automation, for your, in the end, even integration of your network. The same software which you know well from the Linux work, from the servers and the storage. So you can improve your scale, you can improve your automation and agility. So next step is agile architecture. So you are expanding your disaggregation, going to the virtualization, end-to-end automations, flexible and agile cloud-oriented infrastructure. So that always, bringing a faster time to the market, lower TCO, and in the end of the day, is increasing your margin. So when someone is asking how to start, and if someone is keen to try, there is a couple of ways how we could help as an Edgecore, how OCP community could help, how our ecosystem partners, software partners could help, same as our channel partners. So focusing on us on Edgecore, in Europe, we have a Edgecore lab in our office in Poland. There is a rack or two, depends on the availability, which always we can set up with the right topology. And if someone would like to play with a different gears, with a different software options, it is one of the options. It is always a great, let's say, pleasure to do. In some cases, we've been providing mobile labs, mobile demo, and we do have today such as two types. First is a so-called SIBA 10G PON passive optical demo, where you will find our 10G OLTs with some ONTs from the different vendors. So when someone would like to see how disaggregated access, passive optical access could help or could change your company, please just feel free to contact me. And another one, also mobile one that we can send basically in any places, is a typical leaf and spine architecture. In that rack, you will also find some servers for some virtualization and so on, so on. Really depends on the topology. We could upload there some open source software like Sonic as an example. We could also go together with some other software partners like Cumulus, Pika8, Big Switch Networks, Pluribus, IP Infusion, and that could be also a really interesting opportunity. And as I was mentioning, we are working primarily over channel partners. In Europe, we have really strong channel networks, and our partners are really skilled and experienced. So they will be also more than keen to help you to try and start that journey. So we are saying that the evolution is usually painful, and I got that one slide from Steve's presentation. I remember when we've been together in London. So who wants change? As you can see, we all would like to do that, but who wants to change? It's maybe not so easy, and who wants to lead the change? So I know the answer. We are Edgecore Networks, the leader in the open networking, and we don't afraid to take that challenge and help you in that process. Thank you, much appreciated.
Great, thanks, Lucas. That was great. Lesia?
Thank you, Lucas, for this introduction to the Edgecore network and the OCP business. Now we would like to pass to the Q&A really fast. We're running out of time. We're taking only one question. Lucas, I would like to ask you, I know that you work extensively with the telecommunication service providers, and you also probably have the visibility on trends. Could you please tell us which are those trends you were able to identify, and how do you respond for these upcoming changes?
So this is a good question. Really a lot what we can see, especially in Europe, it is happening and will happen in the telco networks. So I have on mind a little bit different requirements which we've been witnessing in the data centers from the hardware perspective, like the designs with the internal Telecom, with high buffer, with which have to meet environment challenges. This is really a huge focus of our company. And there is a lot of partners who are keen to help us to make that happen. So that is the one. And I hope that I answered on your question.
Thank you. Steve, do you have something to add on the trends for the networking projects?
No, I think Lucas has covered a lot of interesting details today, and I encourage anyone that has an interest in this area to reach out to either Lucas or myself or Lesia, as well as the Open Networking mailing list, which is under the Open Networking Project on OCP.
Yes, so I think we are ready to wrap up the presentation and finalize it. I would like to remind that this September there is a gathering for the OCP Regional Summit in Amsterdam. We will be attending this conference, this event, so please feel free to attend, to join, to discuss with us. We'll be happy to meet and get some involvement. We will explain how to get involved in the OCP European Community. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you for presentation, Steve and Lucas. Thank you all team of Tusarisa, Edgecore, and the OCP who participated in this meetup. Thank you so much and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.